The NCAA baseball bracket has been revealed. This is the road to Omaha. 64 teams. 8 will advance to Omaha and compete in what is known as the greatest show on dirt. Johnny Sports Network here to provide you with my predictions for the regionals and the super regionals. At the end of this video, the 8 teams that I have advancing to Omaha will be revealed, and I'm going to get right into this. Starting things off with the Knoxville Regional, as Tennessee is the #1 overall national seed. And in their regional, Northern Kentucky, Indiana, and Southern Miss. I have Tennessee advancing to the Super Regionals. I just feel like this Tennessee team is miles ahead of these other 3 teams as far as talent-wise is concerned. And Tennessee, they are the #1 national seed for a reason. I do think that they will escape this regional cleanly. To the Greenville Regional, East Carolina, Evansville, VCU, and Wake Forest. Going into the season, there was talks about how this season's Wake Forest team was going to potentially be better than last year's Wake Forest team that was the #1 overall national seed, advanced to Omaha, and they made it all the way to the semifinals, losing to eventual national champion LSU. And Wake Forest, they got to work in the transfer portal. East Carolina has been a team that has been knocking on the door of Omaha for the last few years now, but they have yet to get the job done. I just think it's more postseason heartbreak for East Carolina. And I have Wake Forest advancing to the Super Regional to meet Tennessee. And I feel like that would be a Super Regional for the ages. To the Norman Regional, Oklahoma, Oral Roberts, the Cinderella story last year, UConn, and Duke. I don't think Oral Roberts makes it back to Omaha again this season, but we have seen a lot of chaotic things in sports over the years. But I am going with Duke to advance the Super Regionals. I have been high on Duke since the preseason. They were one of my 8 teams in the preseason I had advancing to Omaha. Moving on to the Tallahassee Regional, Florida State, Stetson, UCF, and Alabama. I definitely think this regional comes down to Florida State and Alabama. But in the end, I have Alabama moving on and advancing. To the Fayetteville Regional, Arkansas, Southeast Missouri State, Kansas State, and Louisiana Tech. I think Arkansas easily advances to the Super Regionals. Arkansas, they have been a team that is very familiar with Omaha, but they have yet to get the job done and win the national championship. Could this be the year for the Razorbacks? I had them moving on to at least the Super Regionals. To the Charlottesville Regional, Virginia, Penn, St. John's, and Mississippi State. I have Mississippi State moving on to the Super Regionals, as Mississippi State, they have started to peak in these last couple of weeks. They had some success in the SEC tournament last week. I think they ride that momentum to this regional and to the Super Regionals. The Tucson Regional, Arizona, Grand Canyon, West Virginia, and Dallas Baptist. And I think this regional right here is going to be a lot tougher than what a lot of people may be making it out to be. As Grand Canyon, I think, is a candidate to be that 4 seed that shocks everyone and makes it to Omaha. I also have really felt like Dallas Baptist is due to make it to Omaha, but I have Dallas Baptist advancing to the Super Regionals and what I think could be one of the more difficult regionals. To the Chapel Hill Regional, North Carolina, LIU, Wofford, and LSU. And I was back and forth between North Carolina and LSU in this regional. 1 minute I had LSU, 1 minute North Carolina, and then I went back and forth until I hit the record button. But I am going to go with the defending national champions. Even though that this is a different roster than it was last year, I still think that the defending champions, they move on, as there is still some experience from last year's team. To the Lexington Regional now, Kentucky, Western Michigan, Illinois, and Indiana State. And this could be another regional that I think is going to be, that could be a lot tougher than what people think. But I still have Kentucky moving on, though. As Indiana State, they're going to be a tough out. Illinois, I feel like they'll be a tough out as well. But I do have the Wildcats moving on. To the Corvallis Regional, Oregon State, Tulane, Nichols, and UC Irvine. I have Oregon State advancing to the Super Regionals. To the Raleigh Regional, NC State, Bryant, James Madison, and South Carolina. This is one of the more stacked regionals in my opinion, as people do feel like James Madison should have been left out of this tournament, but we have seen in a lot of different sports people that feel like certain teams shouldn't have made it in. They do tend to go on a run. I remember just 2 seasons ago, people felt like NC State should have gotten in over Ole Miss, but Ole Miss ended up winning the entire thing. So it just goes to show that you just got to be in it and you have a chance. And in one of the more stacked regionals, I do have NC State moving on. But honestly, any of these 4 teams can really win this regional. I think it's that stacked. To the Athens Regional, Georgia, Army, Georgia Tech, and North Carolina Wilmington. And I'm going to go with Georgia to advance the Super Regionals, as I do feel like Georgia is just a more talented team than these other 3 teams. To the Clemson Regional, Clemson, High Point, Coastal Carolina, and Vanderbilt. And this is another stacked regional as well. I do believe Coastal Carolina, they did start the season in the top 25. They may have been in the top 15. I don't quite remember. But I know at some point that I do recall at one point they were in the top 15. And Vanderbilt, they're a past national champion. Clemson, the number 6 national seed. But I'm going to go with Clemson, as that is a regional that is really stacked as well, I do feel like. To the Stillwater Regional, Oklahoma State, Niagara, Florida, and Nebraska. And this is going to be a very difficult region, in my opinion. This might be the toughest regional, as Oklahoma State, they are the 11th overall national seed. Florida, the runners-up last season, as they have had a roller coaster of a season, but they did make the field. And Nebraska, they are peaking at the right time. They're coming off of winning the Big Ten tournament. But I'm going to go with Florida in this regional to advance. This Gators team is really hungry after what happened last year. But if Florida does make it to Omaha, I would not be surprised if they went on a run once again, despite being 28-27 on the year. To the Santa Barbara Regional, UC Santa Barbara, Fresno State, Oregon, and San Diego. I am going to go with Oregon in this regional. I feel like I have to pick at least 1, 3, or 4 seed to advance the Super Regionals, as typically we do see at least 1 or 2 to make the Super Regionals. And finally, the College Station Regional, Texas A&M, Grambling, Texas, and Louisiana. I am going to go with Texas in this regional. A lot of people are going to pick Texas A&M, I feel like, with them being the number 3 national seed. But this Texas A&M team has fallen apart. in these last few weeks. And they were number one just a few weeks ago, but ever since, it's just been going downhill. A series loss to LSU, to Ole Miss. They did get a series win against Arkansas, though. That's the only positive ever since they were ranked number one. And they were 2-out in the SEC tournament. I will be surprised if the Aggies are in Omaha. I just will, because just nothing is really, not a lot has gone right for the Aggies ever since they were ranked number one. Even when they were ranked number one, they had losses to Alabama and Georgia. Now, I don't know if it's just the SEC is just very stacked or if things are falling apart for the Aggies, but after this weekend, we are going to find out. To the Super Regionals now, Tennessee, Wake Forest. I'm going with Wake Forest to advance to Omaha, pulling off that upset against Tennessee. Duke and Alabama, I have Duke. Arkansas and Mississippi State, I have Arkansas. Dallas Baptist and LSU, I have LSU. Kentucky and Oregon State, I have Oregon State. NC State and Georgia, I have NC State. Clemson and Florida, Clemson. Oregon and Texas, and I have Texas advancing to Omaha. So the 8 teams I have in Omaha are Wake Forest, Duke, Arkansas, LSU, Oregon State, NC State, Clemson, and Texas. I did say earlier that it was possible that we could get an all SEC College World Series, but in my bracket, I only have 2 SEC teams in the College World Series with an additional SEC team to be in Texas, but not until next season. That is all I have for my Road to Omaha video. I do plan on being back for when the College World Series starts, and then fill out my College World Series bracket. But until then, enjoy the regionals, enjoy the Super Regionals, and I do encourage you to view the YouTube shorts that I have. And I also plan on making an NBA Finals video once we get the NBA Finals matchup official. But until then, take care, everyone.